trying to come into the country.
But he
and
was
you need
granted
to wait your turn.
asylum. He was granted asylum.
It was
He was fleeing his country.
Let me ask, do you think if someone's here illegally, they should still get due process and constitutional rights?
Absolutely, they should get due process. Sure.
Yeah?
And under federal immigration law, the process that he is entitled to is to be deported.
No,
But he
it's not.
wasn't.
Wait, what? The process he was entitled to was to be deported. That was not the process he was. He had a right to. In fact, he was not supposed to be deported, at least specifically to El Salvador. He was not given due process. And not only that, look, I mean, they're focusing on Kilmore Garcia, but if we broaden our scope here a little bit, the hundreds of people that were sent to the Salvadoran prison were not given due process, did not commit crimes, did not have criminal records other than crossing a fucking border. And yeah, I mean, they were denied their due process, which everyone physically in this country is entitled to.
Isn't deported.
There was a withholding order of removal in 2019 from a judge, and that withholding order of removal said he cannot be deported to one country in particular. That one country was El Salvador. Now, not only did the Trump administration come out and say it was an administrative error, right? They said that, but then the Supreme Court in a 9-0 ruling said that the U.S. has to facilitate the return of Abrego Garcia, not because they love MS-13. This is something I also want to get down. Do you guys think when I'm saying that Abrego deserves due process, do you think I'm defending MS-13 or do you think I'm defending the Constitution? Because your whole opening was like kind of like, did you think we were going to jump in and be like, wait a minute, no, MS-13
No,
is
I
okay?
don't think you guys think MS-13 is bad. I mean, good, sorry. But also, there were 2 judges that said he did have affiliations with the gang.
No, this
And
was
so
those
Hold on,
two
really quick.
judges who-
That even the MS-13 thing is irrelevant. In that court order that you just cited, the Supreme Court, or later, did you read the entire thing?
I mean,
the
the
4-page
MS-13 thing is not irrelevant because the reason that the Trump administration is not bringing him back, even though they have admitted that it was an administrative error, is because they are saying that he has ties
And he's
to
not
MS-13.
MS-13. He's not
When
MS-13.
he was literally fleeing El Salvador because he was being persecuted by
So
them.
again, crossing the border illegally is a crime under U.S. federal immigration law. And
Gonna completely blow past that. I don't care that he was fleeing gang violence. Crossing the border, I don't like it. It's illegal. Even though if it's your first time, it's a misdemeanor. And then after that, it could be considered a felony.
and you are subject to deportation. In that Supreme Court,
Except literally in his case, he was not subject to deportation to El Salvador. Do you care about law and order or not? Do you agree with the president disobeying a judge's order? Yes? Well, then you're a fucking fascist, dude.
the
ruling,
4-page one?
in the Supreme Court ruling that you just read, later.
And the thing is like, okay, they said that, MS-13, he said being MS-13 is irrelevant. She says it's relevant. They're both kind of right. Like, yes, it is the justification for why the Trump administration deported him. But as we've seen with lots of other cases, if you have the wrong tattoo, that's enough to fucking throw you into prison. And now we have literal U.S. citizens, children being deported, being ripped away from their families. And it's insane. The justification of, gang affiliation is just a smokescreen, right? They are willing to deport U.S. citizens. This is fucking, Nazi shit.
Later in it, it said, with due regard to the deference owed by the executive branch conducting foreign affairs, they can't do anything. And so that basically says that the Supreme Court ruled that judges do not have any say over the executive branch's authorities over immigration laws.
Immigration judges
Secondly,
are part
let
of
me
the
finish.
executive branch.
Secondly,
Immigration judges are a part of the executive branch.
the Supreme Court ruled,
Immigration judges are a part of the executive branch. So when the Supreme Court says that judges can't overrule the executive, that immigration judge from 2019 was a part of the executive branch. So your argument is completely moot.
so you're saying this judge is acting on behalf of the executive branch?
The
Yes.
immigration judges, are they a part of the judiciary? No, they're a part of the executive branch. So this is the executive branch saying that.
He fucking got it there. There's no response to that.
And again, the Supreme Court, you want to ignore the other 4 pages of that ruling that say you have to facilitate him. It says your rights do not disappear at the border. It says if the U.S. deports you, they still have jurisdiction of where you are, especially if you're in CCOT.
It said that you had to facilitate, but they can't do anything to have to make the El Salvadorian government bring them back. So if they wanted to bring them back to America, the U.S. would have to facilitate it in that event. Now, if he got brought to the United States, the withholding order, which by the way, it came out I think yesterday that the withholding order in the last hearing said that he couldn't be deported to Guatemala for some reason.
It's always been El Salvador.
But let's pretend that the withholding order from El Salvador was real.
It is.
If
The Supreme Court said it was real.
All right,
Please do not rewrite this.
If you brought him back,
You just cited the
he would be
Supreme Court.
deported immediately because a withholding order and a deportation order are two separate things.
He would
so
not
you would
be.
have to.
No,
Yes, he.
no. The
he
Supreme
is
Court
subject-
said that his rights do not disappear at the border, and that he should go through a trial just as anybody else would have been. Also, when you guys want to cite these hearings where he was found to be MS-13,
I didn't say
these were bond trials where a disgraced former cop who was fired that week said that he thinks Abrego Garcia is MS-13, and if that's enough evidence
But
to
it wasn't just the cop.
if that's enough evidence to
was
deport
two
someone,
judges.
I hope you never have a bond trial where someone makes up some BS about
No,
you.
but
See,
it wasn't
the
just a
problem. The
cop.
problem.
See, that's the thing is like you can have such little evidence to justify believing that this guy was an MS-13, and that's literally happened to all of these hundreds of people that were deported to El Salvador. Is that they fucking had tattoos, and 90% of them didn't have criminal records, which doesn't even matter because like whether you are a criminal or not, you still have you still have the right to due process. If you murder someone in this country, you're not just immediately thrown in prison for the rest of your life. You are given a trial. You're given a trial even though you did a fucking horrific thing, right? And yet you still get you still have a right to a speedy trial. Do you care about the rule of law in the Constitution or not? No, they don't.
Was saying that anybody who steps foot over the line that is America and Mexico or whatever the border is, that they get all of the rights that are entitled to American
all
citizens
the
under
rights.
the Constitution.
No, but you do get due
is
process.
ridiculous. And I think under your worldview, everybody is essentially.
Again, he's gonna blow right past that because he knows he's wrong there. You do get you do have a right to due process and a right to a trial. Yes, you don't get every single right that an American gets. That's true. But that's a straw man. Nobody's saying that.
Essentially an undocumented citizen of America. And I really have a hard time believing that you would apply these same principles to any other country. If I cross into Mexico tomorrow and they deported me immediately, would you say that Mexico should give me due process?
Wait, does Mexico have Article 5 of the Constitution, which says that not citizens but persons? You know what Article 5 says?
So what you're saying is that everybody gets all of the rights under the Constitution. We have to apply our Constitution to everybody of the world.
No, in the
can you let Adam
U.S.
finish?
Just anybody that crosses over.
In the U.S., Article 5 of the Constitution specifically says that all persons in the United States have due process. Now, the framers put persons rather than citizens because it's not just citizens who deserve due process. All persons in the United States deserve due process. This has been upheld by multiple Supreme Court rulings. So what you're arguing for is creating a new class of people within America that have no due process whatsoever. What happens when you create a new class with no due process? You can justify putting anyone into that new class. What if I said that you were a gang member and I never gave you the chance to even defend yourself? Then boom, we deport you, and then I'm debating some MAGA person next month and they're like, oh, but Aldo was an MS-13 gang member. Like, you think that everybody should, obviously this is a bad example, but you get where I'm going, right? If you remove due process from one person, you can remove due process from anybody.
I think it's a great question. Let's talk about due process.
Sure.
Over the last 4 years under the Biden administration, upwards of 15 million illegal immigrants crossed into this country. Now, we have a process in immigration, and there are correct ways to do it, and there are incorrect ways to do it. Now, what you're saying is that those 15 million people, all of them deserve trials, all of them deserve our resources.
Not trials.
They deserve a hearing, right?
I mean, a hearing of some sort, but these can go
So
quickly.
15 million people deserve trials. Now, we have another amendment in our
Not-
Constitution, or a hearing. We have another amendment in our Constitution that guarantees the right of citizens to a speedy trial and that due process. And so the problem is when we're saying that everybody that crossed our border the wrong way, and I hope none of you are disputing that, they did it the wrong way, that we have to now take our resources.
I mean, it depends. He's saying that every single person who comes into this country without documentation is the wrong way. That's not always true. I mean, they have mentioned asylum in this conversation multiple times. That is a legal way to enter this country. If you are fleeing persecution based on, certain criteria, you are allowed in this country according to our asylum laws. I'm not saying it's all 15 million people, but it's certainly, a significant percentage. And he's saying that those people all need to go back. They all need to go back and potentially, face severe persecution.
Which are paid for by the American people and are for the American people. Now they have to wait because 15 million people decided overnight that they want to be Americans. That is not fair, and that
Overnight? What the fuck is he talking about?
does not respect the due process of American citizens. I went to the border at the height of the Joe
You do
Biden.
know that illegal immigrants also pay taxes, right? Like it's not.
Some of them.
No,
I think that's
And also,
irrelevant, though.
some of them pay taxes, but also
This is all irrelevant if we're going to talk about being irrelevant.
Some of them pay taxes, but 3 in 5 illegal immigrants are on taxpayer-funded welfare. They are a drain on the systems, upwards of $160 billion annually. These are FBI
You
statistics.
can rattle off facts, but the
So
Trump
let me-
admin
can I
illegally
finish?
deported
Let me
someone.
finish.
Sure, you can finish. Yeah.
And so when you're saying that these 15 million people, they woke up overnight, they said they want to be Americans, and now all of them deserve hearings, we have finite resources, and I hope you can say that that is going to put a strain on our systems that are for American citizens. I went to the border in 2022, and the border towns were overrun. You had CBP office.
Okay, let's see. Is there actually a drain on the economy by immigrants? Okay, according to the PBS, and granted this is from 2017 or 2018, immigrants contribute more in tax revenue than they take in government benefits. That is literally the opposite of a drain on our economy. But whatever.
Officers and sheriffs that use their own money to buy water because they didn't want to see kids dying, and they had to feed them their own water. And so the open borders advocates have successfully convinced a large portion of our country that open borders are compassionate, but it is the furthest thing from it. And
But
there's
dude,
a
you're
reason.
missing the
Let me
plot.
finish.
We're not
There's a
ad-
reason that
You've
we
been
have due
talking for so
process.
long. You have to make it a conversation.
You're right. There is due process.
You really have to make it a conversation, but we're not advocating for an open border. I think that you're conflating his argument of due process.
He's gish galloping. He's not going to address any of their actual points. He's going to, start talking to an imaginary leftist who is advocating the things that he's, imagining, because he has no response to any of their points. So he's just going to, throw shit at the wall and see what sticks.
And advocacy for an open border policy. No one is advocating for an open border policy. What we are advocating for is that the Trump administration has openly claimed that they made an administrative error. Abrego Garcia has already been tried in 2019 and was found to be an asylum seeker and was allowed to stay in this country. So if you're going to just unilaterally, they fucked up. They fucked up and they have to bring him back. It's kind of the point. It was a fuck up and he admitted it was a fuck up, but they won't bring him back. And that's creating this kind of slippery slope that the Trump administration can just deem anyone a member of MS-13. And we did this in the last middle ground with Mahmoud Khalil, who was deemed a terrorist because of his connection to pro-Palestinian organizations and was arrested without due process, even though he had also not committed a crime. So now this is the second instance of us seeing this in this country, and that's my fear.
I think, oh, go ahead.
I think also, the president of El Salvador met with Trump recently, and there was a video that I saw yesterday or this morning, where Trump said, even if we wanted to bring him back, the president of El Salvador said that he didn't know if he could do that. So now it's in El Salvador's hands as well. So even if the Biden administration screwed up, it's in El
this is the
Salvador's.
Trump administration.
Sorry, yes. Sorry.
I'm sorry. The Trump administration could absolutely make El Salvador, the president of El Salvador, send him back. Are you fucking kidding me? All we have to do is say, hey, we're not giving you any aid unless you send him back. Boom, done. It's that easy. Yeah, the most powerful country on the planet can't make this tiny little Latin American country, which, given our history, we can make them do pretty much whatever we want. But we can't do it in this instance. We're too weak. We're too weak and fragile. I'm sorry, we just can't do it.
Sorry, I mixed that up. Even if the Trump administration screwed up, it's still up to El Salvador now.
Well, that is fair. But we're just talking about right now. Even if the El Salvadorian government will not bring him back, the Trump administration needs to put forth efforts to bring him back, and they have refused to do that. And that's the argument.
I think also though, like I was saying, they just had a meeting and they said that they have tried to make efforts, but and again,
No, they didn't. Trump openly said that he was not willing to do that.
the president of El Salvador was literally meeting with, like it's on.
Okay, so
video.
both of them had said that, but right now we're talking about the American government has now claimed that they made an administrative error, has confirmed that this was an error, but has also confirmed that they are not willing to fix this error. How many more errors are we going to see? Like, how many errors do you get in human
Well,
lives?
to be clear, the error was that there was paperwork filed about the withholding order, and the withholding order said that he couldn't go to El Salvador. So what you're
The
saying,
error that
hold
he
on.
was wrongfully
Can I finish?
deported to an El Salvadorian prison. That's a huge
The error was that they did an illegal
Right,
deportation
it was 100%.
Yes.
Well, again, deporting a person that crossed the border illegally is not a mistake.
against a withholding
is
order
illegal.
of removal. They-
Why can't he get this through his thick skull? He had a judge issued a withholding of removal order that says that you cannot deport this guy. So yes, in that specific instance, it was wrong, illegal to deport him, even though he was an illegal immigrant.
They said it was
Withholding order has nothing to do with the deportation order. If it were to
there
be
was,
done,
was there a
Can I finish?
deportation order?
Yeah, I finished.
Was there a deportation order? You
Yes,
just mentioned that.
yes.
For Kilmar Abrego Garcia, there was not.
2019.
That was a withholding order of removal.
No, and
That's
withholding
the
order.
opposite of a deportation.
So, Han, I have a question. If he was deported to a country other than El
That would
Salvador,
have been fine. That would have been illegal.
This guy is so dumb. So fucking dumb. And if you guys don't know, this is the guy who replaced the darling Will Witt on PragerU. And he's as equally dumb as Will Witt, but he has none of the charisma. And he's not nearly as attractive as Will Witt is. They made a huge mistake hiring this guy.
you would be fine with that?
The administrative error was them being deported. If he got due process, then sure. But the reason that he got deported to El Salvador is because they didn't give him the due process to figure out that there was a withholding order of removal. That's the.
Yeah, I actually appreciate that. Would you say the same, Naima?
Yes.
That's literally what.
That's what
So
we're saying.
when you guys pick red for this, you're making the argument that the U.S. government can deport anybody and not bring
That
them
crosses
back.
the border illegally, yes.
No, anybody and not bring them back.
No,
anybody.
just people that break the law.
No. How did they know that this? Number one.
Lots of people break the law. I don't know if he misspoke there. Okay, so I might be just splitting hairs. But he said anybody that breaks the law. And this is what Trump said too. So I would not be surprised if he actually meant it this way. But anybody who commits a crime, okay, if you speed in a school zone, boom, Salvadoran gulag. Straight to jail. Believe it or not, straight to jail.
Anybody, when you create a new class of people with no due process, with no
Criminals who
ability
break
for
the
a
law.
hearing, no. How do you know they're a criminal if they don't have the ability to defend themselves? But
Well, because he came into this country without due process.
But
That's illegal.
He then gained due process, and they had a withholding order, which is why he remained.
This is so frustrating. Like, he refuses to understand that this guy, like, we know more about this guy than the fact that he just came over the border. Like, lots of things happened after that we know about, like a judge issuing a withholding of removal order, which means you cannot deport him specifically to El Salvador. And then if you are going to deport him, he is entitled to due process, right? To figure out where, they're going to send him. There's a legal way to do that. Instead of just throwing him on a plane and kidnapping him, and sending him to a fucking gulag.
In the country. He was already arrested and detained and given his due process, and it was stated that he is allowed to stay here.
So you're actually
But he
allowed
had
to
been here
allowed to
legally.
claim and seek asylum from outside the country. That's something that you can do, and that's actually the process that
he
we
didn't
have on
seek
the books.
asylum. He actually, a withholding order of removal is a few steps above.
Right, that's my point. Is he never actually got asylum? He had a withholding.
He got something above asylum.
better-
It's better than asylum. A withholding order of removal means you can't be deported to a specific place, and the one specific place he was deported to. So again, when you guys are saying that the Trump admin shouldn't bring them back, there was another Supreme Court ruling.
Well, you're asking us to disregard the rule of law, which is under
Wait,
the
no, no, no.
Constitution.
No, you are disregarding the rule of law. Oh my God.
Holy
But
shit.
Trump's
Under the U.S.
administration.
Wait,
Constitution,
holy shit,
Title
holy
8, Section 1325, I believe, the executive branch has the power to deport immigrants who enter the country illegally. You're asking us to go against the Constitution.
Please, please, please. You guys are completely inverting reality. The Trump
This is the pattern here with this guy. is that he cherry picks information and he hyper focuses on it and says, look, this is, the law. And if we disregard every single other aspect of this case, then my thing happens. The thing I like happens. And I'm not going to focus on the rest of that crap that invalidates my position because I'm a fucking moron.
Trump
I don't even think this
administration.
is you guys don't claim her in this.
Sorry.
She's just been chilling.
Sorry, the Trump administration is currently going against a Supreme Court ruling 9-0 that you read that said that he has to facilitate.
It said executive powers have complete control over foreign policy.
No,
that
it does
includes
not.
Immigration.
Immigration judges
Yes,
are a
it
part of
did.
these.
And yet, it still said the administration, the Trump administration, must still facilitate his return. So again, he's hyper focusing on one paragraph or one phrase in the Supreme Court ruling and disregarding everything else. You gotta take it as a holistic, thing, my dude.
Executive branch. You know that, right? You don't know that. So if I go back to what he said, you don't know that. You can laugh all you want.
To be honest, I didn't know that, so I'm learning something. And I think, and that really pokes a giant hole in Waldo. Was his name Waldo? Warbo, his argument.
But just going
You
back,
didn't read the SCOTUS.
I
You did not
absolutely read
it.
the Supreme Court
It
ruling.
said that they have, with due
was
regard to
4
the
pages
deference
long.
owed by the executive branch in carrying out foreign affairs.
You are completely inversing reality. Not only is the Trump admin defying a court order, but they defied a withholding order of removal from 2019. So when the Trump admin breaks the law, admits they break the law, and your whole argument is that somehow that he was here illegally, you're placing the onus on Kilmar, dude.
Well, you're saying that the judges are the law.
Did the Trump administration
Are judges the law?
court orders?
Are judges the law?
No, court orders need to be upheld by the administration.
So
Judges
you're saying
aren't-
if a judge rules on something that automatically that the courts have to agree with that, or sorry, that they have to agree
That's
with
how
whatever
it's
the
I mean,
court-
judges are responsible for
yeah.
upholding the law, yes.
Right. So recently there
Congress defines the law.
So wait, do you disagree with the judge in 2019? That's your argument? You disagree with their withholding order of removal?
Not necessarily, but I disagree with
necessarily.
I disagree with the idea that just because a judge says something that it is therefore true.
So the Supreme Court.
Supreme Court absolutely. No, the Supreme Court absolutely.
Okay, so when they say facilitate,
the
then
Supreme Court said that the president has complete control over these matters.
No,
so I
they
agree
said
with
the executive
What I disagree with
branch.
is that these district courts can rule on a law and that everybody has to follow it.
It's funny that he's saying, "Oh, the Supreme Court says that the executive branch has complete jurisdiction over this thing," and I agree with everything the Supreme Court says. Then why don't you bring up the fact that they said that the Trump administration must facilitate Garcia's return? Why do you refuse to take in everything? Right? Stop picking and choosing.
Okay, so can you guys just explain, going back to the prompt, and concisely why you don't think Kilmar should be brought back? You know that him being illegal isn't a good explanation because him being illegal doesn't remove his due process. So what's the justification?
So under our Constitution,
Article 5.
right, you have, no, I'm talking about, I think it's Title 8, 1325, immigration. If you cross the border illegally, you are subject to deportation, period.
No, not period. Unless you have a withholding order of removal.
And the Supreme Court ruled
you're
that,
saying it's
that the executive branch has power to deport him.
We are going in
simple as that.
circles right now. We're
Yeah, the power to deport, yes, if there is no withholding of removal order. Dude, like, how can you... I feel so bad for, like, his friends, his family, if he has, like, a girlfriend or a boyfriend. It would be so infuriating to have a conversation with this guy. And I can see Adam Mockler is getting very, perturbed by this guy. He's so stubborn and so dumb.
going in circles. I want you to look this up later.
I will.
Are immigration judges a part of the judicial or the executive branch? It's going to say executive, and then we can go back to the 4-page Supreme Court ruling that you accused me of not reading, even though I read it multiple times going into this, and you'll see that they were referring to not only the executive branch and the immigration judges, but they say your rights don't vanish at the border. If the rights vanish at the border, the Trump admin could pluck people out while they're sleeping in the middle of the night, deport them, and say, we don't have the jurisdiction to bring them back. And we're talking about tariff guy. The tariff guy doesn't have the power to tariff El Salvador and bring the dude back. Like, just put tariffs on them.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
I honestly don't think that we're going to come to an agreement on this topic. As it stands, we're not advocating for open border.
Okay, whatever. I can't take any more of this, guys. Guys, I'm going to have a brain aneurysm if I watch any more of this stupid Jubilee video. So I'm going to go take a nap. Love you guys. Like and subscribe. I hear that's a thing that people say. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.